Like most kids my age, I am extremely forgetful. I lose my black book at least once a week, never know what time a round starts, and there's nothing more embarrassing than looking for my phone while I'm talking on it. My memory is less than stellar, which is why it was so upsetting to read the January 9th, 2019 New York Times, which stated that Shajir Ardeen Bot-Enik can memorize an entire deck of cards in 12 seconds. I mean, what? These memory athletes are able to strengthen their cognitive abilities and memorize huge amounts of information. While not all of us can recollect like a world champion memorizer, all of us rely on our ability to remember. Whether it's memorizing the order in a deck of cards or retaining the memory of a lost loved one, we spend most of our days in constant recall. Our memory helps us understand who we are and ultimately shapes every decision we make. We rely on our memories to construct our realities, and unfortunately, they're never as reliable as we think they are. So today, instead of forgetting what's going on, let's dive deep into the mysteries surrounding memory by first examining how memory works, next reminiscing on the tactics of memory manipulation, before finally recollecting the implications of faulty memory. Now, I thought speech would be all fun and games until they told me I had to memorize this entire speech, all 10 minutes of it. Who do they think I am? A memory athlete or something? While the idea of how our brains forms memories can be confusing at first, the Vox Explained documentary from September 2019 on memory breaks this process down and makes it easier to remember. Our brain creates and recollects memories like a performance, separate parts coming together to form the memory. For example, my memory of my first speech tournament required multiple parts of my brain to work together. So let's take a look inside my head. Well, at least the visual aid of it. The sound of my name being called to go next. Auditory lobe. Grabbing my first VA board with sweaty palms. Post-central gyrus, where our sense of touch is stored. Evaluating the mixed emotions on my judge's face. Fusiform gyrus, where we distinguish facial expressions. My deep sense of embarrassment as I tripped over my words and my VA stand. Our region of emotions, the amygdala. Finally, when my parents asked me how my first speech tournament went, my medial temporal lobe, which contains my amygdala and my hippocampus, reconstructs the novice performance into a cohesive story. However, we can't always rely on our amygdala and hippocampus to provide us with the most accurate of memories. Flashbulb memories are some of our most descriptive and specific recollections, similar to a photographic record. Flashbulbs are formed after abrupt and deeply emotional events. So naturally, researchers Jennifer Tallerco and David Rubin from Duke University saw 9/11 as an ideal opportunity to study this phenomenon. On September 12, 2001, the pair questioned participants on where they were, who they were with, and what they were doing at the time of the attacks. Months and years later, participants were asked the same questions, and their answers changed dramatically, but not their confidence in those false memories. Details from their original story were exaggerated or changed altogether, but they recalled the events just as clearly as they had on day one. For example, a participant questioned on September 12th described attending school in the suburbs of New York at the time of the attacks and remembered watching the tragedy at home on her television, smoke filling the screen. Then, just a few years later, she described that same smoke. It was no longer on her TV screen, but drifting past her classroom window. As we repeatedly revisit a certain experience, our confidence in our memory grows stronger and stronger, despite changing key details. 9/11 and other tragedies are days that will live in infamy, but in our memory, they are constantly changing. Now, we all know just how crucial first impressions are to a new relationship, but there's nothing worse than forgetting someone's name at the second, third, or even fourth impression. It's absolutely embarrassing. When in doubt, saying, "Hey girl," has always gotten me out of an awkward situation. But our ability, or lack thereof, to recall an abundance of past moments is an incredible biochemical task that takes place each day. But what happens when our brains are damaged
and how can our memory change? Riley Horner was crowd surfing at a concert on June 11, 2019, and when she suffered a major blow to the head, resulting in a severe brain injury at only 16 years old. It became clear that something was seriously wrong when Riley struggled to recall memories from just a few hours prior. For months, Riley woke up believing that it was still June 11th. However, thanks to several neuroscientists and psychologists, Riley has been able to slowly regain her ability to remember through both cognitive and physical exercises. According to Cognitive FX Research Facility in Provo, Utah, Riley's communication system in her brain was struggling to receive oxygen, making it incredibly difficult for her brain to recall past memories and create new ones. Events like these are just windows into the complexities and mysteries of our memory that are just being uncovered. And now, scientists are trying to figure out how our memory can be manipulated in ways different from incidents like Riley's. The July 13th, 2018 National Geographic article does a deep dive on scientists doing experiments on mice in hopes that their research will help trauma victims forget their memory of the incident. First, they expose the mice to a fear factor, like a shock on the foot. And while doing this, they find the part of the brain where the bad memory is located and isolate it. Then, using blue lights and lasers, the scientists destroy the brain tissue where this bad memory is. Through these experiments, scientists have discovered the possibilities of memory manipulation. But they've also raised concerns about the ethics of this process. While we all have haunting memories, we do anything to forget. What are the implications of this process? All of our memories, whether good or bad, have shaped the person we are today. If we remove those memories, who will we be afterwards? Now, it's clear that my memory is less than stellar. But for some reason, my brain has held on to every McDonald's, Folgers, and Pepsi commercial jingle since the dawn of time. My brain clearly has its priorities. It's also clear that our memory is far from perfect, and we begin to remember less and less the older we get. Dementia is a common condition marked by memory loss, confusion, disorientation, and struggling to solve simple problems and tasks. Progressive dementias include Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia, and over 44 million people suffer from these conditions. This is why Hogweek, a nursing home specifically for dementia patients built to resemble a small community, was created. According to the February 6, 2020 University Times, Hogweek is the perfect option for those struggling with dementia that want to continue living a normal life. At first glance, it may resemble an average retirement community. However, upon entering the small stores, you'll find that each of the employees within them is a trained professional in treating dementia. The doctors in the Dutch village explain that by allowing the residents to be independent and fill their routines with meaningful activities, they have been able to reduce the effects of their condition and live a more meaningful life. But our memories, or rather false memories, can impact the lives of others. And nowhere is this more clear than in the case of eyewitness testimonies. The Innocence Project found that, quote, mistaken eyewitness identifications account for approximately 69% of the more than 375 wrongful convictions in the United States overturned by post-conviction DNA evidence. These studies found that eyewitnesses are presented with misleading lineups, leading to a higher inaccuracy in identifications. All of our memories are formed in some way by our underlying biases, whether these be biases of gender, class, or as seen far too often in the criminal justice system, race. The before-mentioned Innocence Project found that cross-racial misidentification accounted for approximately 42% of the mistaken eyewitness testimonies. It is clear that while these testimonies may be a helpful and compelling addition to a case, when we think about how we form and recall memories, we must ask ourselves, can these memories be trusted? Today, we dove deep into the mystery surrounding memory. We learned how memory works, reminisced on how it can be manipulated, and remembered just how faulty
our memory system can be. Now, my memory is still far from perfect, and memorizing this speech was enough of a daunting task. I can't even begin to imagine memorizing an entire deck of cards like those memory athletes. But while parts of our memory can continue to confuse us, it's important to remember just how vital it is to our lives. Now, if I could only remember why,